You should always be looking to spice up your music to make it sound a little bit less boring to listen to, and staccato and legato are two great ways of using what we call articulation to make that happen. The first one I'll go over will be legato. Now legato basically means to try and join the notes together as best as we can. Now because the piano is a percussive instrument, what happens is as soon as we strike a note, the hammer hits the string and the sound starts to decay. So really the true meaning of legato is that we can't do it on the piano, sadly. But we can try our best. It's not like a violin or a flute, for example. So for a violin, you can actually move from one note to the next note with like no gap in between. But when you do it on the piano, there's always going to be that wee bit of a gap because the sound starts to fade straight away. So it's really difficult to do. To mark legato in music, it's also known as a slur now, and this can actually lead on to phrasing as well. When you see this in the music, and I'll show you an example, is where the slur, which is like a long curvy line, could be a short curvy line, starts at the first note of the phrase and then it comes up and then back down towards the last note of the phrase. Now that could last 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, or much longer as well. To give you a wee example of what it would sound like on the piano and playing legato, then just have a listen. What I'll do is I'll just play C major so that you can hear what it sounds like, and just it should be as smooth as possible. So legato markings should not be mistaken with ties. They look exactly the same, you know, it's that curved line that joins one note to the next. A tie is where you have 2 notes that are the same, that have the time mark between them, and what that means is you just play that note for longer. So just make sure that you don't confuse that with legato. The second part of articulation I want to talk about is staccato. Now staccato is pretty much the opposite of legato, so I probably don't need any more video, but I'm going to do it anyway. So staccato means to separate the notes. Now there is a kind of, there's 2 misconceptions about staccato. The first one is that new students tend to think that staccato means that you play faster. Now the tempo doesn't change when you use staccato. As I said, all you're doing is separating the notes. It doesn't mean that you have to squeeze them closer together. It just means that you're putting some space in between them. The second misconception is that it has to be really, really short, and that's not the case. You could have notes that are separated a wee bit, or you could have notes that are separated by quite a lot, and I'll show you an example of that. There is another shorter version of staccato, and that's called staccatissimo, and it looks very similar. The staccato is just a dot above or below the note, whereas staccatissimo generally is almost like a wee triangle and an arrow that points down towards the note, and that means that that should be like really short as you can make it. Understanding and using legato and staccato will make your music definitely sound better, but if you really want to take your playing to the next level, then you should watch this video that goes over music performance directions. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in another video.